This video is going to go over a problem from the Building Java Programs book. We're using the Practice It website, which accompanies the book. And we're in Chapter 8, which is about classes, and we're looking at exercise 14 class line. So this is a great example that everyone really needs to be able to do when they do Chapter 8 of creating an entire class. So the class that we're going to be creating is called line, and the features of this class are we've got a constructor that takes 2 points. We've got getters, so it's going to get point 1 and get point 2, and it's got a toString. So that's going to put out a string like this. So I'm not going to give you the entire solution, but I'm going to at least set up the structure of it for you. So I've got a bunch of other videos from Chapter 8 exercises and self-checks that you should try if you haven't already yet, because I go over a lot of these details. But we're going to need to have a public class. We're going to call it line. And then generally you're going to start with your member variables. Then you're going to have your constructors. Then you're going to have your getters and setters. In this case, there aren't any setters, but that's where you put them. And then you're going to usually end up with your toString. So for your member variables, you're going to have to figure out what are the member variables necessary for this function class, because they don't tell you what the member variables are. So you should look for your member variables, you should think about what do you need to store for the object. So an object, this object line consists of 2 points. Okay, that should be a pretty strong hint right there that the line segment has 2 points. Therefore, you probably know that you're going to need to have 2 points here. So that's where you would put it here in the member variables. Then for your constructors, they tell you that you need this constructor here. So we know that is going to be a constructor. So the constructor is going to go there. And what is it? First of all, let's review. How do we know it's a constructor, or how do we tell the compiler it's a constructor? Because it's the same name as the class and there's no return type, okay? And this constructor takes 2 parameters, point 1 and point 2. So if you've figured out your member variables here, then you can set them here. And remember to use this dot, whatever, equals something, right? And then we're going to need our getters and setters. So that here is going to be public point get p1. Okay, so it takes no parameters because the getter is going to get the information out of the class. And actually, instead of just making you guess, I'm going to give you a fake member variable. Okay, this is not what you want. I'm just going to give you an integer variable, so at least I can finish typing it. Okay, so it would be this dot p equals 5, just an integer. And here I'm going to have to return a point. So I'm going to return p, which is not the right thing, but you can imagine if p was the point, okay? And actually, I always tell my students use this dot so that we're very clear as to where we're getting that from, okay? And then the toString here, this is going to be public string toString, okay? That is always the case for toString. It's always going to look like that. So that's easy. And then you just need to return the string. So we know that there's going to be some starting, and we know there's going to be an ending to the string, and in the middle here is going to be this is not correct, but that's the general form, right? You're going to have some starting stuff that has to go on here. Then you're going to use this dot to access the member variables, right? Now, there is a trick to this particular problem. So when you try to get the values to stick in here, you're going to need an integer in here. I'm going to create a new point p equals a new point of 2, 3. Okay, we're going to try creating this. What happens if I do this? This is probably going to fail spectacularly. All right. It was upset because I hadn't declared get p2 as well. I also have to go in here and change this. So what I want to do is return not this .p because I'm just trying to fake you guys out here, but I'm creating a new point here. Let me just go ahead and put this in here. This is not right, but I'm just trying to show you what the problem is. Okay, so if I do a new point here, and I put that in there, and I do dot get x. Well, I want to see what the dot get x comes back as. Okay, it failed, but what I'm looking for is this. Okay, so that dot new point dot get x is returning 2.0. Okay, and what I want is I want 2. Let's take a look and see whether we can do dot x instead of using get x. Okay, and so it actually did work. So get just plain x using the public variable member variable x works. It prints out 2. Okay, so that's rather unfortunate that the public variable does what you need it to do, which is printing an integer, whereas the private method get x, you're going to have to actually convert to an integer. So that's a little trick when you're doing this program that could fool you. Okay, so I have not completed this program, but I've given you the overall structure and shown you kind of how to do things. If you put that together with some of the other self-checks that I've done videos for, you should be able to do this problem. So let's just review. What is this problem about? This problem is about an entire class creation with the constructor, the getters, they didn't do any setters unfortunately, and the toString. So it gives you some good experience here. And so I did not show you how to do this, but you need the right member variables here. You need to set the right constructors here. You need to use getters here. And then you need to write this toString here. And I talked to you about the format and how if you just access .x, it'll return integer, which is actually what you want. If you use .getx, which is really the right thing to do, unfortunately it returns a double, so you're going to have to force that to be an integer. So if you found this video helpful, please like and subscribe. I have a complete curriculum on building Java programs, and I have a lot of these practice problems.